Hello, my name is Horrorama, and today I have found 5 accounts of people's encounters with dangerous paranormal beings. If you end up enjoying my narrations, then please do consider liking and subscribing. But anyways, let's get on to the stories. The first story has been posted by user Bubble Tortoise. It was about 8:30 p.m. While taking out the trash at work with a coworker, a large dog approached us. It seemed to be galloping. It wasn't walking normally like an animal should. Despite the many surrounding lights, the dog appeared to be entirely black. It was silhouetted enough that you could see its muscle definition. I could see a slight reflection in its eyes, but it seemed to lack shadow. My roommate and I both expressed having different experiences and visions of the dog. When I initially saw the dog, I interacted saying, "Aw, dog," in excitement. For me, it proceeded to sit entirely still on the cement, staring like a statue. What I saw was a large, fluffy, black dog. Lazy ears, similar to a Newfoundland dog. My roommate expresses seeing the dog as a large, very muscular, aggressive-looking black dog that stood rigid the entire time, staring like it wanted to attack. It was short-haired, muscled, and had pointed ears. I jokingly stated that the dog looked like a skinwalker, not really anticipating that anything would happen. Then, we immediately felt a wake of dread fall over us. Something was wrong. We both saw the dog's jaw open, almost as if it was about to bark. We heard a distant, yet extremely clear, high-pitched, "Come here." The dog immediately turned to take off. We turned around the corner. The creature was unreasonably far up the road for the short amount of time that it was not being observed. It was wobbling, crossing its paws, walking oddly. When it turned left around the corner, it seemed to nearly stand up on its hind paws, walking on 2 legs, just before passing around out of sight. The rest of the night was just as interesting. We had trouble with certain objects slightly moving in place, nudging a bit, settling. It quickly became more aggressive. But then, just as we were about to leave, we heard a loud and persistent knocking coming from the front of the house. We quickly went to our cars. On the drive home, I tried to blast music and ignore what I had just seen. I heard whispering coming from my back seat. I couldn't quite make out any words. It just sounded like whistling, almost. But get this. I saw a random, antique, clawfoot bathtub on the left side of the road, in a field. It was certainly not there the day before, or even that morning on my drive there. The kicker? I was watching the sidelines of the road for animals, and I most certainly saw a buck. He was leaping out in front of the road, a good 50 feet ahead. I slammed on my brakes, but when I got closer, it was merely a bush. Perhaps I was just paranoid, but this is all very concerning. The second story has been posted by user SoyJacob27. So, I hope I am not putting myself in danger taking the time to be open about this, and I hope I am doing this right. I will just start off with my own encounter, and proceed to talk about the encounters of 2 other family members. So, around 2 or 3 years ago, I first came across the idea of a skinwalker existing. I have always been interested in paranormal, but at the same time, I did not want to get involved. I wouldn't shut my mouth about it, talking to my friends about it and whatnot until one day something happened that spooked me. So, my family has this property a mile or so away from the Roanoke River, and it was acquired a long time ago. It covers a lot of land and is completely densely wooded, and part of my family has been there since. It is currently split between my sister and her fiancé, and the other half is occupied by my grandparents. One day, I was there because the internet at my house had stopped working, and I had to complete online coursework because this was during the time of COVID and shutdowns everywhere. I am in the house alone, quietly minding my work, and then I hear a scream in the distance. I can't say why, but I froze, my eyes locked, staring out the window. I have lived in the country before, and I know how noisy and weird animals could be. It freaked me out because I never really heard a scream like that. It sounded distorted and animal, yet also like a human being being murdered. In my mind, I knew it had to be an animal. I mean, it's the woods. Animals live there. They eventually make weird noises. Now, before I finish the story, I want to first say, I still think there is a possibility, a more common explanation for what occurred. I don't know what happened for sure, so I'm not going to make any certain statements. Well, 30 seconds after the scream that sounded pretty far away, I heard a male voice say, "Hello," very close to the window I was staring out of. The way my gut churned and the sick feeling I got instantly was like none other. I felt like my breath was leaving my body. It was the tone of this "hello." It was as if a friend was excited to see me, but I saw no one out there. My mind was just racing and telling me to get out. Likely chance of it being an actual person murdering people or something. I just need to get out of there and leave, and so I did. I called up my family, who were away at the time, and told them what happened, explaining how either they have someone trespassing or something really weird is going on. They investigated when they came home, and nothing was found. I decided then, respect that I don't know what is out there, and there are people who have been around longer than I have, and I should listen. I stopped worrying about it, and I rarely think of it, and I personally have never had another encounter like that again. My sister and her fiancé, however, have their own side of this ongoing story about this property. I am only repeating what I managed to get out of them. Whenever I tried getting them to recount their experiences, they just stare off into the distance and seem closed off. It is obvious they truly believe what they saw was something out of the ordinary. Well, her fiancé had family from New York over. They spent a few nights there, and a couple of the family members self-identify as witches. My sister told me they heard of the skinwalker and wanted to try to call to it. Now, I'm not sure if that's even possible. I thought it was rather unwise, but not my house, not my problem. A while after the visit, my sister came to my house and she talked to me about something she saw while driving home at night. She described a pale figure, white and faceless, on the side of the road of this property I had my experience at. She really wouldn't go into much detail because she didn't enjoy talking about it. I realized that something serious could be on that land. I advised her not to worry about it, and that weird, unexplainable things happen all the time, until also, when her fiancé was driving home by that land at night, he also saw it. He went into more detail and described it as faceless, white, bright humanoid. It sort of crawled in a skipping fashion and didn't stop, straight across the road in front of the car. I opened up about this to someone who runs a museum for all things paranormal in a nearby area. She advised me to get into contact with someone who may know a Native American spiritual healer. The only Native person I know, though, was my late grandfather, so that was a dead end. I personally allowed myself to be at peace, though. I have been ignoring it and refusing to dwell on it, until writing this post, I guess. And nothing has bothered me, though I am going tonight to stay at that house again. What makes it even creepier is that, especially when it's cold, we hear coyotes howling all the time out there. And it's sort of become a peaceful thing, knowing that nature is as it should be. But when the sun goes down and those woods are quiet, I can't help but imagine what could be happening beyond what I can see. I would actually love to go camping one day and spend time outdoors, but something changed in me that makes me reluctant to leave the walls of the house when I am there. Again, thanks for any input for what could happen. Still a little confused on this one. The third story has been posted by user Ashkey90. My paternal aunt is a well-respected lawyer for the Navajo Nation. Being a lawyer from the Navajo Nation, she must live close to the capital where she works. There are many rural communities surrounding the capital of the Navajo, with no running water or electricity to this day. Her and her only son were living in a manufactured home in a heavily wooded area near Sawmill, Arizona. They didn't have running water, but they had electricity, which was recently connected within the past 5 years. Their dogs would always go missing or eaten by coyotes, so they only had house cats at this point. A couple of nights in a row, her son tells her that he thinks someone is trying to break into their home. He tells his mother that he can hear them trying to get into the house from the back door or gain access from the roof. She has never heard anything of the sort except the occasional howling of packs of dogs roaming the reservation. At first, she thinks her son may be experimenting with drugs that could be causing this paranoia. The son is so adamant that he hears someone trying to gain access to their home while they sleep at night. He installs motion-sensitive Bluetooth cameras in the area that he claims to hear the most activity. I am not sure what brand of cameras he installed, but it's the kind that starts recording once it is motion activated, and it shows you a live feed of the activity. He syncs the cameras to the smart TV in the living room. As many young Navajo youth do, he moves to Phoenix shortly after setting up the cameras for whatever reason. The mother doesn't want to be alone her first weekend he is away. She invites a close family friend, her sister by clan. They are laughing and talking after dinner, and the TV is on idly in the background. Her sister asks if she is boiling water for tea. Confused, she replies that she is not. Why? They hear a low, hissing noise and eventually find the root of the cause. The family cat is in the hallway of the trailer and is looking up towards the ceiling and is hissing with its fur raised. As soon as they draw their eyesight and attention to the cat, the smart TV switches from the satellite programming to the camera feed as it had been activated. At first, they both watch in amazement because they had no idea what could set off the cameras, as they were angled up so high no wildlife could trip them. They hear the unmistakable sound of the displacement of weight on the roof as if someone was walking around. The footsteps and creaking had intention, definitely human. Their eyes dart back to the live feed. They both watch frozen in fear as they see a man covered in white clay and black dots, and what appears to be multiple articles of fur and animal skins slowly descend off their roof, using the metal chimney stack which ran vertical to the outside of the home. My aunt is completely frozen. Her sister tries to snap her out of it by gripping her arm, as to keep her grounded so she doesn't faint or fall sick to what she is seeing. He is halfway down the chimney. Then they see a tattered old cloth bag dangling above his head at the top of the screen. As they continue to watch, they see a pair of bare feet beginning to join him in descending down the pipe. The pair of feet appear to belong to a naked Navajo woman. She is covered in white clay and black markings, as well as turquoise necklaces bouncing off her bare chest. She is climbing down, holding the bag they saw earlier. Both of the creatures drop to the ground, and with a blur, take off in different directions. The sister gets angry and wants to go outside and yell and cuss to confront them, but my aunt is frozen. She doesn't regain her bearings until 30 minutes later. They replay the footage and rewatch it to make sure they saw what they actually saw. They choose the option to save the recording and archive it. My aunt, being logical, wants to show the footage to a medicine man so that he may provide some information as to what and who is it that they saw. That night, they both sleep in the living room. The rest of the night is uneventful. The next morning, they went to the medicine man. They attempt to play him the footage they saved, but it's gone. The memory is wiped clean. There is no evidence of the cameras being activated, not even a digital timestamp. The medicine man does a prayer for them because of what they have seen. The holy people tell the medicine man that they saw a married couple who were skinwalkers that don't want my aunt living in that area because of a land dispute. When asked why the recording disappeared, the medicine man tells them that the skinwalker did a wicked blessing type prayer as to safeguard themselves from being filmed or shot by bullets that have not been blessed. Bullets and guns that have not been blessed by white ash will misfire or never fatally harm a skinwalker. Similarly, technology, like cameras, can never capture them as well. She told me this story face to face, so I asked her how they looked when they ran off. She said, "Have you ever seen that vampire movie Twilight? You know how when they run, they are looking like a blur? It looked just like that." She also added, before they took off running, that it looked like their eyes turned completely white. This incident happened in the early months of 2022. The fourth story has been posted by user bungalow_blue. Currently watching this TV show talk about creatures like skinwalkers and other cryptids, and I am reminded of these strange occurrences growing up. This happened for years, but I never figured out what it could have been or why I felt this way. Background: I grew up in a small town in Arkansas. We used to visit my uncle who lived 30 or 45 minutes from our place. He lived with other family members on roughly 60 plus acres and down a barely paved road that would turn into endless potholes upon approaching the gate to his driveway. It was really in absolute nowhere, with very few neighbors around. Not sure if this matters, but I grew up Catholic. I'm agnostic now, but I never felt or believed in Catholicism. And my family has always been very superstitious, more so with angels, demons, and ghosts versus creatures. Okay, back to my memories. We would frequent often And it didn't matter what time of day it was, because as soon as we reached the section of the road that turns into jagged potholes, it would start. This stretch of road always took the longest, since you had to drive so slow and rows of trees leading to the forest areas lined this road. It was during this time I would always feel the need to move to the middle seat. I always sat in the back and slumped down. Our car was an old station wagon that had lots of visibility. I felt like I was in a glass house. It was a sickening feeling that would wash over me. The feeling you get when you're being watched. And I think that we were. I never saw an actual creature per se, but I would frequently see branches move and shift as if they were popping up from someone hopping off them or forcefully moving them, but there was nothing there. We had coyotes, raccoons, goats, stray dogs, standard wildlife you can think of, but I never saw anything, ever. One night, we are inching our way into this house, and I get the feeling again, and I'm scared. I'm probably early teen or preteen years. I got the notion that I should turn and look into the tree line. There, as I stared, I saw two yellow or reflective eyes staring back at me, maybe 6 to 8 feet above the ground amongst the trees. After what felt like hours of not blinking, I held his gaze as it stepped out of sight behind the tree. The figure was hard to make out, but its dark shadow-like appearance it casted made it seem broad and awkward, too unnatural to be human. I slumped lower, but no one believed me. From then on, I frequently would see this thing, and sometimes what seemed like more than one, with similar behavior when we drove by. It felt like it was stalking us sometimes, following the car up the road. If I felt brave and looked back, I saw a dark figure, sometimes upright on 2 feet, but sometimes down on all fours, shuffle across the road. Sometimes it would get close to the car. I looked back once and saw the taillights reflect and dim as something just below the back windshield moved past it. There was a thud against the car or occasional rock thrown, often not hard and had a different sound, like it was purposefully thrown versus gravel getting kicked up by a car. Only once did a rock come from the darkness ahead and crack the windshield. My mom popped on the high beams, but there wasn't anything there, just movement in the trees. Her reflexes were very fast turning on that light, so I don't think a local teen or neighbor was playing a stupid prank and would have had time to dart out of the way, as they would land on barbed wire that also was on both sides of that road. I hated when I got older and was sent out of the car to be the one who opens that gate. That was when I felt close to maybe being attacked. Once we got to the house though, I felt safe. My uncle was a former vet and avid historian and gun collector. He wasn't superstitious, but he was the only one who would hear me out. His property was fenced off. One fence around the house itself with a decent spanning backyard, and then fenced again around that for goats and cows he raised. I never felt like going outside at night because I could feel eyes on me. It was always eerily quiet. It made you feel like you would never be happy or sleep again. No bugs humming, just silence with the occasional livestock noises. Sometimes weird booms or snaps happened, and we would investigate, and the scenes looked like a bear or something came through here. But there aren't any bears in the area, and sometimes large branches were found broken or snapped and in unnatural positions or far from their tree. I have no clue what these things could have been. No Indian burial ground, landlocked, no lakes or mountains, though heavily rocky terrain. Maybe some rumored Indian settlement in the past, but I'm not sure. The fifth story has been posted by user silent_pay_9239. I recently moved to South Dakota for work, and last week my coworkers and I decided to drive down to Badlands National Park in an attempt to catch the Aurora Borealis. Sadly, it didn't end up showing. We arrived around 8 p.m. and stayed until 1 a.m., so it was pitch black the entire time we were there. Everything was fine until four of us decided to take one of our cars to look at a herd of bison that usually hung out several miles down the road. We didn't end up finding any, save for a couple of stray bulls, but that's beside the point. We ended up turning around to rejoin the others, and on the way back we saw something strange. Well, more accurately, everyone else but me saw it. This is a reoccurring theme, and part of the reason I hesitated to share this story. However, while I cannot back it up myself, multiple people saw the same thing at different times without discussing it with each other, and their reactions seemed genuine. As we sped over a hill, the other three people in the car with me started freaking out. They started asking each other whether anyone else saw what they saw, and verifying exactly what it was they spotted. They all agreed a tall, pale, pink humanoid figure had sprinted across the road in front of us, almost too fast to see. I was skeptical, and if this had been the only sighting, I would have honestly thought nothing of it. The others were still a bit freaked out though, for the entire rest of the drive. Once we'd rejoined the rest of our classmates, things seemed normal for about an hour. We were just hanging out, looking at the stars, and enjoying each other's company. However, a car drove down one of the roads near us, and the person next to me stared at the car and went, "What is that?" She kept her gaze on it and relayed it to us afterwards. Please note, we hadn't talked about what we saw in the car once we arrived back at the campsite. She said she had seen the same figure sprinting across the street in front of the other car and had kept an eye on it in the dark. She also stated it had moved so fast that it had traveled down the road in a mere few seconds. At this point, we were all thoroughly creeped out. The people who'd been in the car with me relayed our story about the figure that ran in front of our car. They agreed they'd seen the same being, and we all kept our eyes out for the rest of the night we were there. I do intend to head back there sometime, against my better instincts perhaps, to see if I can catch a glimpse of it myself, and I'll update this if I ever end up doing so. Every time I find a yet another story, such as the ones in these videos, I both sympathize with the poster and I feel heavy intrigue in their encounters and experiences. I sincerely hope that I will be able to keep sharing these fascinating encounters with everyone listening. But either way, I do hope you enjoy this video, and so I wish you a good rest of your day.